What's good, YouTubers and YouTubettes? This is JBsports back again with another one. The NBA playoffs are 10 days away. It's going to be interesting to see how the playoffs play out. But the number one question that needs to get answered is who will be the NBA's MVP of the regular season. There's been a lot of talk about Nikola Jokic is the front runner for the NBA's MVP. Before that, it was talk about Joel Embiid. Before that, it was talk about LeBron James before he got injured. It was talk about James Harden when he went over from Brooklyn and put up monster numbers and carried that team to one of the best records in the Eastern Conference. It was talk of Dame Lillard, Dame time. It was talk of him putting up numbers as an injury savage Portland Trail Blazer roster was impacted. He carried the team and put up monster numbers. CP3 was in the discussion for the MVP as he carried a downtrodden franchise in the Phoenix Suns and made them in a battle with the Utah Jazz as the best record in the Deep Western Conference. As he's carried the youngsters and showed them how to win, like Ayton, the center for the Phoenix Suns, and Devin Booker, the sharpshooter, shooting guard out of the University of Kentucky. Those are names that have been prominently mentioned in the MVP discussion. But it's a name that should be mentioned in the MVP discussion that has not been mentioned hardly at all. And that name is back-to-back MVP Giannis Antetokoumpo, aka the Greek Freak. He is my MVP. I think people get caught up in saying, okay, well, he won it twice. Let's give it to somebody else just because. No, we're not going to play that game. We're not going to do it like that. We're going to give it to the MVP of this season. We ain't going to worry about who won it last year or the year before last year. That was the Michael Jordan effect. Michael Jordan should have won the MVP probably at least 2 or 3 more times than he won it. Everybody was tired, fatigued, kept giving the MVP award to Michael Jordan. So you seen one year, Charles Barkley got it in the 1992-1993 season. Even though, in my opinion, Hakeem Olajuwon really should have got it that year, as he carried a Houston Rocket team on his shoulders, on his back that year. And they actually was the number 2 team in the Western Conference, even though they finished with the number 3 seed. They were tied with Seattle Supersonics that year. That's the Gary Payton, Sean Kemp team. They got it over the Houston Rockets because they had the advantage in the head-to-head matchup. Them two teams finished with the same record, but the Houston Rockets should have got the advantage over them in a 7-game series due to the fact that they won their division and Seattle finished second to Phoenix in their division. But that's neither here nor there. But Michael Jordan got passed over a couple of times when they gave it to Karl Malone, when he was obviously the best player in the league at that time, and he was carrying the Bulls to yet another NBA title, putting them on another championship run. He didn't get the MVP those particular years. And I think we're looking at the same scenario as far as Giannis Antetokoumpo. He's having a great year. He's putting up the same numbers or similar numbers than he put up the last 2 seasons, which he walked home with the MVP trophy. He's putting up similar numbers, y'all. 28.4 points per game, 11.1 rebounds a game, and 5.9 assists per game. And he's shooting over 56% from the field. The guys are putting up big numbers. Now, if you just want to really nitpick, his numbers are slightly down from his last 2 NBA seasons. A point here, 2 points there, a couple of rebounds down here, and a field goal percentage is pretty close. Maybe a percentage here compared to his last 2 or 3 seasons. But you got to look at the roster. He's got a Jrue Holiday that came onto the roster this season. So that's a guy that's taking some of his scoring opportunities away from him. You got a Chris Middleton, who is a multi-time NBA All-Star, who, quiet as kept, has really had a monster year this year. And he's solidified himself, and he's quiet to talk of him being a legitimate number 2 option or not. He's quiet that talk. He is a legitimate number 2 option. So he's done his thing. So, in the other 2 seasons, you had an Eric Bledsoe who was in and out of the lineup, always dealing with injuries, always dealing with his issues. You don't have to worry about that with a consistent, reliable Jrue Holiday. So you got to put that into play. Now his minutes per game are up compared to his last 2 years. He was averaging a little bit over 30 minutes per game. This year he's averaging a little over 33 minutes per game. So you would think his stats would probably be a little bit more than it was the last 2 seasons. But again, he's got Jrue Holiday there, and he's got Chris Middleton, who's really took his game to a next level, in my opinion, and solidified itself as a true number 2 option on that Milwaukee Buck team. They have a deeper bench. Their bench production has been better than it was in the past. And I just think he's putting up the same numbers that he put up in the last 2 seasons. And that should, in itself, put him in consideration for the NBA's MVP. A lot of people going to say, well, wait a minute. They were the best team in the NBA. They had the best record in the NBA. This year they don't. Well, they're the number 3 seed in the loaded Eastern Conference. The Eastern Conference is much more dangerous than it was in the last 2 seasons. You got a team in the Brooklyn Nets who, in many people's opinion, is going to be the team to beat in the playoffs this year. You got the Philadelphia 76ers under the guidance of Daryl Morey and Doc Rivers that seem to take their talents and finally maximize their abilities, and they're really playing at a high level the whole season. Joel Embiid, again, is an MVP type of candidate. So they're right there. So the MVP is top heavy more than what it was in the last 2 years. And you still got teams like Boston and Miami who have playoff experience, deep run playoff experience. So it's a different ball game they're dealing with that they had to deal with the last 2 years. But they're still sitting there with one of the best records in the NBA. Still has an outside chance of finishing number 1 in the Eastern Conference. So when you look at all that and take all that into account, in my opinion, Giannis Antetokoumpo, the Greek Freak, is this year's MVP because he's playing on the same level that he's played in the last 2 years. If it's good enough to win MVP in those last 2 years, it should be good enough to win MVP this year. You've had other guys that are qualified to win the MVP this year, but when it's all said and done, I think it's a fatigue factor that's in play as far as Giannis Antetokoumpo is concerned, and the people are holding that against him, looking for a new face, looking for a new car to drive, as they say. Tired of driving this old car. I want a new car just because. This other car taking you where you need to go. You ain't had no problems out this other car. You know, you don't have to, you get an oil change and you pretty much keep cooling in it, and you keep gas in it, and it drives and takes you where you need to go. You never have no problem out of it. No, I just want another car just because. I just want to be in something different. That's the same scenario that's playing out with the Giannis Antetokoumpo MVP discussion. You just want to see something new. You want to try something different, and you want to bring in a new face. Because the NBA, quiet as kept, is going to need a face to replace the LeBron James once he leaves the game. And they're looking for that next star to take over, to take that torch and take that throne from LeBron James. So we will see what happens, and we will see what transpires. But in my opinion, Giannis Antetokoumpo should win this year's MVP and become a 3-time MVP and back-to-back, yeah, MVP of the 2021 season. Let me know your thoughts and hit the like button and subscribe to JB Sports, the man, the myth, the legend, and I'll holla.